Nasta Rojc was a Croatian lesbian painter who defied societal norms, famous for works like her 1910 Ilicia Street, which we will be visiting today at the City Museum in Zagreb, Croatia. You'll find out why she was ahead of her time and probably hasn't received the acclaim she probably deserves. You will not only see the painting, but also hear a discussion with the museum curator about communist history in Yugoslavia and more about life for her in Zagreb, as well as visiting the spot of the painting today and looking at where she lived and much more. She was born in 1883 and died in 1964. Welcome to Art, Culture and Books with me, Anthony King. In her 1910 Ilicia Street painting, Nasta Rojc meticulously depicts a recognizable corner of Zagreb where she resided during that time. The artwork is distinguished by its attention to minute details, including the architecture of the buildings and the attire of the people who populate the street, reflecting the fashion of the era. Rojc's skillful rendering captures the play of light and shadows, conveying a genuine sense of atmosphere. Ilicia Street not only showcases her artistic precision, but also serves as a historical record of the urban landscape and the daily life in Zagreb at the turn of the 20th century. Join me in Zagreb at the exact location where it was originally painted. I'm standing in Ilicia Street, which is the main road of Zagreb. It would be the equivalent of London's Oxford Street. It's about 3.5 miles long and it's got a very interesting atmosphere, which was captured superbly by Nasta Rojc in 1910 in her painting Ilicia Street, which we're going to take a look at today. We can find the painting at Zagreb City Museum, which literally is just a few meters away from here, north, which in turn is just a few minutes away from where she lived in Rokov Park. As I walked through the museums and galleries of Zagreb, this particular painting struck out at me, because even though it was painted in 1910, I stopped and recognized the location as one that I've walked many times. So let's take a walk north and let's take a look at where she lived in a beautiful park, Rokov Park, and let's go and take a look at the painting. I'm standing in front of Nasta Rojc's Ilicia Street. It was painted in 1910, but it perfectly captures the spirit and the energy of the same street today. We see almost a claustrophobic scene with tall buildings almost overpowering you, very little light, and that's exactly what it's like today. A lot of pollution and dark buildings, and the buildings themselves have not changed. These are the same buildings you will see there today, and the hustle and bustle is exactly the same. We might not see the horse and carriage, but we certainly see the trams, all of the people in close proximity, always aware of the trams and the traffic and the hustle and bustle and what's going on around you. You haven't got much space to move. It's almost like you're in a trench. Ilicia Street is almost like a charming, beautiful trench. And this painting really does capture that. She lived just above this location. Ilicia Street draws along the south boundary of Rokov Park, where she lived. So this would have been her street in her hometown. Who knows, maybe because she travelled so much. It has a slightly romanticized element to it with the traditional dresses. There's a lot going on in this painting. We see the police, horses in their uniforms. This was the Austro-Hungarian Empire at the time, in 1910. And a few years later, in 1918, was when it became the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. As we stand before Nasta Rojc's remarkable painting, I'd like to share a quick message before we start this recorded interview and discussion with our museum curator. Now please be patient and remember, this is real history you'll be listening to. Now English isn't her first language and she might be a bit nervous, but trust me, the conversation will get captivating. We'll explore not just the art, but also the intriguing intersection of art, history and life in Yugoslavia, including insights into Rojc's unique perspective and her relationship with the political climate of the time. So let's stay open-minded, engaged and prepare for an enriching dialogue. I asked you, and you told me that she was I said she died poor and unhappy, and you told me that she was ahead of her time.
Because she lived ahead of her time, because she was very open to new ideas, new way of living. She appreciated different people, different experience about world, about people. She traveled a lot. She knew a lot of people in abroad, and so she didn't live in traditional way.
Is that why do you think that she's not so famous as maybe she should be?
Yes, in traditional meaning,
Yes.
some way of meaning, yes.
Do you think if her father was not so established that maybe she would not have even had the success that she did have?
I think that she would, because she was so talented and so interested in the world, in events, in people, and she would make a lot of relations with people. She would travel. She would find a way to realize her ambitions. I'm pretty sure, and she would be also a painter, and she would, but she wouldn't live so careless.
Yes.
So because as a young woman, she could travel. Because her family was pretty rich. So she didn't have the problem of that way.
She could focus on her art.
But later, when social circumstances changed, because of political changes, so everything changed in her life. And you said she died poor and so on. But she had a very interesting life, and she experienced a lot. And
why isn't she so famous? Because I would think that she would be one of Croatia's most famous, celebrated artists, and when I ask people in Croatia, not many people know about her. Why do you think that is?
Because she wasn't so presented in public media, but among specialists, among historians of arts and collectors of arts, she is pretty well famous and appreciated, because she was very talented. Her work is appreciated work. And all her paintings are in museums, in galleries, and they could achieve a pretty solid price on the market of arts and so on.
Today?
Yes.
Ilicia Street, the painting that we have here.
Yes.
Do you know anything about that? Can you tell me anything about that painting?
Yes, that is the scene from the Ilicia Street. Is the most important commercial street, even nowadays.
Just over there?
Yes, it is in downtown. Down this, we are now on Upper Hill, and down the Upper Hill there is the real city of Zagreb, and the Ilicia Street is one of the most important street in commercial part of the city, with lot of shops. It is street for walking and shopping. Also at the time when Nasta Rojc lived.
And she lived above.
And you will see the scene of this street with tram. At that time, you will see also cottage with not cottage.
Carriage with horses.
Carriage with horses. Yes, because so very lively picture with citizens in traditional clothes, in modern clothes at that time. Very interesting with these houses on the both sides of streets.
The feeling is exactly the same as I feel down there today. It hasn't changed.
Because she achieved the atmosphere of that street. Feeling. Because usually people say that is this women the way of the women's way of painting.
Women's
with
way
a
of
lot
painting?
of feelings and so.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I've never
and
heard
this
of that.
sense for colors, for atmosphere and so.
Oh, I've never heard of that. Okay, very interesting. Just when I have this on, I need to ask you one thing you said before. You said that you don't have the contrast between rich and poor areas in Zagreb, because we were talking about the painting and how elegant everybody looks. So in 1910, we have the dog, we have the Austro-Hungarian Empire uniform, we have the traditional clothing.
Yes.
And you have it looks very elegant. And you mentioned before that Nasta Rojc, she was wealthy and lived, that was the people that she associated.
People in Zagreb, they are famous for this reason, because they always take care about outlook, about
really?
dressing.
The style?
Yes, we always have this code of dressing when we go into city.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
Or walk, or to realize some task or everything, but people want to look well. So.
I asked you before about Zagreb in 1910. This was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, is that right?
Yes.
And then it became the Kingdom of Croatia in 1918?
Yes, or Kingdom of Yugoslavia. That was between two world war.
Okay, so it became the Kingdom...
20th and 30th last century.
Right, and I asked you before, was Zagreb what kind of place was it in the 1900s? Was it rich? Was it poor? Because it looked very wealthy in the painting.
Yes, it was solid city, but it was a provincial city in great monarchy. But people lived here well. So they had their own fashion. They were fashionable in their way.
And was this like you said before that there was a project to almost raise the level of the quality of living as almost an anti-communist statement. Is that true?
Yes, because after World War I and after the communist Bolsheviks took power in former Russia, Soviet Union, and a lot of people from Croatia were during the World War I on the battlefields that were in front of Russian positions in the east part of Europe, so on eastern border of Europe. So, and they had a lot of battle with Russians, but throughout the 1917 and 1918, at the end of World War I, a lot of them were prisoner war prisoner in Russia, and they adopted these Bolshevik ideas. And when the war was over, so they came back into Croatia with these new ideas, and they spread among poor people, among working people, peasants even so, and that was and Zagreb became one of the center of this new communist. Because Zagreb was industrial center, there lived a lot of working people, industrial working people, and it was
they were receptive to the ideas.
Yes, and especially in the southern part of the city, where were settlement of working people. Nowadays, this part of city is called Trešnjevka. Trešnja is cherry. There are a lot of gardens with cherries, orchards with cherries around the houses, and that was the name for the whole quarter, the cherry quarter. But it was called red cherry quarter because of the red color of communism. Because a lot of people, working people who lived there, adopted these new ideas, and that was the first city mayor elected in Zagreb in 1920 on the first public elections after World War I. He was communist. Yes, and that was the great shock for the upper class, and he didn't last long, only 1 month after that new city mayor was, and he was one of the prominent men who supported these new social reforms, politics to improve the way of living of working people, to stop the spread of communist ideas. So that was at the beginning of the 20th last century, and that was also the period of rapid development of Zagreb.
So here's the thing: you have rapid development, you have a working class which is receptive to communism, but then you said there was a rejection of this.
Yes, because the upper class didn't want to allow spreading of communist ideas. They stopped them immediately.
So some people outside,
and this communist party became illegal.
Wow.
Yes, they work, but illegally.
So, do you know?
And they had a great influence all the time.
The communism in Yugoslavia. So
was illegal in old Yugoslavia in the period between two world wars. Yes, Communist Party was illegal.
Okay,
so
and
that
after
was
this-
proclaimed by the king in Belgrade.
Right.
Yes, Alexander Karađorđević. He proclaimed all communist activities illegal, and yes, and
So from
they-
1944, 1945, this is when.
1921.
Now, but when did communism come back? 1945. Right?
They came on power after World War II
Yes.
because the communists were the main leaders of the resistance to
Against
Germans,
the
Italian at the time of the World War II, and a lot of people supported them.
What
Yes.
is so if you go to Prague, if you go to Czech Republic, there seems to be a very different type of communism in these former.
Yes, because it was, yes, they have some
Compared to-
locals, yes, local communists, but...
Is it because you were so far from Moscow that you had slightly different, you didn't have so much control, they couldn't exert control over you?
We were never, this country
Satellite
was
states.
never in direct conflict with Russia throughout the history, never in ancient time, in new time or in 20th century, never in direct confrontation, except in the short period of time after World War II, when Tito was the leader of communists here in Croatia, but he couldn't he couldn't agree with the way of how communists ruled in Soviet Union. So because the
So was it
social
like a business
revolution on the territory of Croatia was our own social revolution. It wasn't
Russian.
in Croatia it wasn't imported from Russia, because we have a very strong communist movement here on this territory, and Tito was very independent in this, and he didn't want to become just
like a
yes,
satellite state.
like
of Russia.
other East European countries, they were satellites of
Yes.
Russia.
Do you know, I was reading that Nasta Rojc and her partner were arrested.
Yes, because they supported anti-fascistic movement in Zagreb. Yes.
So in the 1950s, what do you think it was like for an artist like Nasta Rojc to live like? What do you think? What was her life like living in this society?
Yes, but she was at that time pretty old, and she didn't paint anymore.
Oh, right.
Yes, in 50s.
Oh, really?
Yes, she
stopped.
painting throughout 20s, 30s, so between two world wars, and after
Was
that,
she being persecuted? That's why she didn't paint, because she was being persecuted for her lifestyle choices.
not
because she was arrested.
not officially. So I think, but after the World War II, she didn't paint anymore, and she was actually.
Why was she arrested? Why was she? Apparently, she was arrested for her previous views of.
Yes, at the time of the World War II in Zagreb, there was a regime associated with the rise with fascist Nazis. Yes. Yes, and she couldn't support this. Yes, and
So then afterwards, no, but she was arrested afterwards and then released.
no, she was arrested in 1943.
Oh,
yes,
right.
and spent several months in prison.
1943.
Yes, 1940, at the time of the World War II.
Oh, okay. I thought she was arrested later.
No. Later, yes, this regime, pro-Nazi regime, during the war, World War II, they took their house from her. So, but after World War II, this house was given back to her. But she lived very modestly.
Okay, one more question. She was a public, open lesbian. No problem.
Yes,
she was proud.
everyone knows.
Everyone knew.
She was.
What was it like living in Croatia in the 1950s for somebody like her?
Yes, during this socialistic period. So she wasn't discriminated. She wasn't discriminated officially, but she had some, that is very hard to say, because she was in her 70s, 80s years of life, so she was pretty old. That is the different way. So she didn't have great problems because of that. Because nobody cares because of her way of living. She was an old woman, and her...
What were artists embraced in Croatia, in Yugoslavia? Were artists embraced? Were they appreciated? Because I know that, for example, in other communist countries, artists were very much watched.
Yes. They had to follow the official regime's directions in art, but that was completely different in Yugoslavia and socialistic Yugoslavia, because Tito's regime was different. It had a lot of contacts with the West world, and these new influences in art, in all kinds of arts, very soon came into our centers of culture. So, and our prominent artists of all kinds, they're very also appreciated in Western countries. They could travel abroad, yes, and to create new connections, and so. And Zagreb was the center of modern art in 60s, from the time of the late 50s throughout 60s and 70s. One of the centers of modern art in Europe.
Really?
Yes, you can inform yourself.
Okay, yeah.
You can
I'll look
find,
it up.
yes, you can see art in Zagreb in 50s, 60s, modern art in Zagreb. And you will find a lot of articles, monographs, and information.
You have been amazing.
You're confused when I talk in
Your English is very good. Your English is
I couldn't at the right time find the right word.
very good. Thank you to our museum curator from the Zagreb City Museum for joining us today and for sharing those valuable insights, shedding light on Nasta Rojc's artistry, her perspective on the tumultuous period in Yugoslavia, and the unique historical context in which she created her remarkable works. Nasta Rojc, the Croatian lesbian painter, was truly ahead of her time, breaking free from societal norms and expectations through her fearless and pioneering spirit. Her audacious self-portrait in a hunting suit from 1912, where she confidently wore a man's suit, is a remarkable and likely world-first example of her defiance against gender conventions in the art world. Rojc's life was marked by personal and artistic challenges, as she lived during a time when societal acceptance of her sexual orientation and unconventional artistic expressions was limited. However, her unwavering commitment to her craft, reflecting her progressive mindset, defined her as a true artist ahead of her time. As Rojc matured, she continued to paint, pushing the boundaries of creativity and expressing her unique perspective. Unfortunately, her work and contributions weren't widely celebrated during her lifetime, despite her talent and the boldness of her self-portrait. In her later years, Rojc's life was marked by artistic exploration and personal struggles. Her journey ended in relative obscurity, far from the international acclaim she might have achieved in a more accepting and inclusive era. Nevertheless, her legacy endures, and her self-portrait remains a symbol of her defiance and courage. Remembering Nasta Rojc allows us to honour her pioneering spirit, one that challenged societal norms and paved the way for future generations of artists and LGBTQ+ individuals. Though her story may not be as widely known, it is a testament to the power of art in breaking down barriers and forging a path towards a more inclusive and accepting world. You've been joined today by me, Anthony King, and now it's your turn. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. What are your thoughts on Nasta Rojc, her art, and today's episode? Please comment below and share your viewpoint. You can find out more about me on my website, anthony-king.com, where you can support me by purchasing one of my many books.